नाहं विवेमि अजितेति भयानकस्य जीवानेत्रभृकुटीरवसौ आन्त्रस्रजलशतजकेशरशङ्कुकार्णा निर्हाद्रभीतिदिग्भद् Somebody like to recite? It's an Ugra verse, huh?
It is.
Naham vibhemi ajitate bhayanakasya
Jivarganetra Prabhuti Rakshasapranamstra Antrasaja Kshatajashanthukarna Nihiradvita Digitha Aribhinna Abra. Aryan too? Oh, sorry. Should we end it here?
No, please.
Go ahead. Naham vibhemi ajitati bhayanakasya Jivarganetra Prabhuti Ravasodhanamstra Antrasajakshatajakeshara Niradabhita Digidbhat Aribhinna Khagrat
Naham vibhemi ajitate bhayanakasya
Naham vibhemi ajitati bhayanakasya Jivarganetra Prabhuti Ravasodhanamstra Antrasajakshatajakeshara Nihiradabhita Digibhat Aribhinna Khagrat
Naham vibhemi ajitate bhayanakasya
Naham vibhemi ajitati bhayanakasya Jivarganetra Prabhuti Ravasodhanamstra Jivarganetra Prabhuti Ravasodhanamstra Antrasajakshatajakeshara Niradabhita Digibhat Aribhinna Khagrat Naham vibhemi ajitati bhayanakasya Urgati Rasodhanamstra Anta Saja Sataja Kesara Sankukarna Niradabhita Digdavat Aribhinna Khagrat Na, not. Aham, I. Bibhemi, I am afraid. Ajita, O Supreme Victorious,
who are never conquered by anyone.
who are never conquered by anyone.
Take
Your Ati, very much. Bhayanaka, fearful. Asya, mouth. Jiva, tongue. Arkanetra,
eyes shining like the sun.
eyes shining like the sun. Brukuti,
Frowning brows.
frowning brows. Rahasya. Strong.
Ugra
Damstra. Ferocious teeth. Antrasaja. Garlanded by intestines. Sataja. Bloody. Kesara. Mains. Shankukarna. Wedge-like ears. Nirharda. By a roaring sound caused by you. Bhita. Frightened. Digibhat. From which even the great elephants. Aribhit. Piercing the enemy. Nakhagra. The tips of whose nails. My Lord, who are never conquered by anyone, I am certainly not afraid of your ferocious mouth and tongue. Your eyes bright like the sun, or your frowning eyebrows. I do not fear your sharp, pinching teeth, your garland. Your garland of intestines, your mane soaked with blood, or your high wedge-like ears. Nor do I fear your tumultuous roaring, which makes elephants flee to distant places, or your nails, which are meant to kill your enemies. Perfect by His divine grace, is He going to without this punishment by the Lord Nrsimha's fierce appearance was certainly most dangerous for the non-devotees. But for Prahlad Maharaj, such a fearful appearance was not at all disturbing. The lion is very fearsome for all other animals, but its cubs are not at all afraid of the lion. The water of the sea is certainly dreadful for all living entities on the land, but within the sea, even the small fish is unafraid. Why? Because the small fish has taken shelter of the great ocean. It is said that although great elephants are taken away by the flooding waters of the river, the small fish swim opposite the current. Therefore, although the Lord sometimes assumes a fierce appearance to kill the Dushkritis, the devotees worship him. Keshavadrita Narharivika Jaya Jagadisha. The devotee always takes pleasure in worshipping the Lord and glorifying the Lord in any form, either pleasing or fierce. Om Jnanantirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Vadanti Sarvadatinam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jyotapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathamritam Sajivam Sadhaitam Sadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Raghunatha Shri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisya Govinda Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurami Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Sakalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhu Bhevasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Naham Himeni Ajita Eti Bhyanakasya Jibhar Kanetra Bhivati Rapasokra Namastrana Antra Sraja Shatajakeshara Shamdhukarna Nirhar. What a beautiful prayer. First of all, really grateful to be here with all of you in this Toronto. Such an honor to see such enthusiastic young Vaishnavas trying to study and practice the teachings of Srila Prabhupada in the Western Bharat. So grateful for your participation, grateful for having me here. In this particular verse, in fact, this entire chapter, which is titled as Prahlad Maharaj pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev. All of us are familiar with this beautiful pastime. Are all of us familiar with this pastime? Yes. So the scene is this 5-year-old boy is disobeying his father. It doesn't seem like a big thing because 5-year-olds do disobey. In fact, as they get older, they disobey more. I have a 21-year-old and a 18-year-old. So I know exactly what that means. It's not a big thing that a 5-year-old is disobeying his father, but this father is not an ordinary father. And this child is not an ordinary child. This father, even the sun, the moon, the demigods, the rainbow, nobody dares to disobey. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that he would raise his eyebrows and dictate to the sun to rise. That was how powerful Hiranyakashipu was. And he was thinking of himself as he is Supreme Personality of God. But Krishna has a sense of humor. Right? The sun god and the demigods are obeying him. What does his son do? He disobeys. And not in an arrogant way, in a very sweet way. In a very sweet way. He sends his son for training. And he asks him, what did you learn from your teachers? And Prahlad Maharaj is thinking about his one teacher, Narayana, who he learned from in his womb. And he says that Vishnu, Krishna, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are all his servants. Eternal part and parcel of him. His eternal servants. Can you imagine the word servant? For Hiranyakashipu was stronger than a lightning, the Vajra of Indra. Said, servant? Are you kidding? Who's teaching you all this? And the teachers there were trembling in the corner, saying that we have no idea where he's learning this. This is the scene. And finally, he was so disturbed by his 5-year-old that he tried every possible way, gruesome way, to kill him. Threw him from mountain cliffs, left him in a cell with deadly serpents, in the fire. Everything possible in his ability tried to kill Prahlad. But with every incident, Prahlad Maharaj remained untouched. Completely untouched. Not just physically, but even, can you imagine, we talk about so much about trauma. I had trauma, I was traumatized in my childhood. What trauma can we talk about? When you read Prahlad Maharaj's pastime, look at his childhood. His father is trying to kill him in every possible way. He was even untouched emotionally, psychologically. He remained fixed. Why? Because his mind was fixed on what? On the lotus feet. His mind was completely saturated that everything that is externally affecting him also did not affect him. That's the power of smarana. In fact, Sri Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha, Bhakti Sandarbha, he says there's 5 stages of smarana. Does anybody know the 5 stages of smarana? First stage is smarana, just thinking about the Lord occasionally. And remember, Krishna has not said that if you attend 100 Srimad Bhagavatam classes, you are eligible to go to Golok Vrindavan. Or if you did 500 DT dressings, you are eligible to go to Golok Vrindavan. The eligibility was put on Smarana, Antakale Chamasmarana. How much importance is there on remembrance of Krishna? All of these additional activities that we do, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, offering obeisances to the deities, associating with devotees, offering puja to Srila Prabhupada, offering puja to the deities, is to help us with this one aspect which is remembrance of Krishna. Right? So, Srila Jiva Goswami explains in Bhakti Sandarbha that the first stage of remembrance is smarana. Where you occasionally, once in a while, oh, today's Narasimha Chaturdashi. How beautiful. Look at the fierce form of the Lord. Once in a while we remember, we think of him. You know, I thought of you the other day. That's smarana, once in a while. When we graduate from thinking once in a while, we reach the stage of dharana. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that when you pour, there is a stream of water or oil. That much time that it takes for the water to fall is called dharana. Now, if I tell you, how many of you took darshan of Khirchor, Govinda this morning? All of us did, right? So, the Bhagavatam explains that how beautifully you should take darshan from the lotus feet of the Lord to his cap, to his waist, his tribhanga form, his navel, his broad chest, his beautiful smiling face. So when I'm describing this for a moment, for a few seconds, you're able to situate your mind in remembrance. That stage is called dharana. For a few minutes, without your mind wavering, you're able to establish it on the beauty of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, the remembrance of Krishna. That stage is called dharana. The next stage is dhyan. When the stage of dharana becomes even more, you can hold it for a longer period of time. In the stage of dhyan, it is said that you start taking things personally. You start having favorites. You know, usually if you have an argument with someone, don't take it personally. That's what we tell people, right? This was a casual comment. Don't take it personally. But when you're emotionally involved, that's the time you start taking things personally. Right? But when our emotions become absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, we start taking things personally. We start having favorites. right? Their favorites. I really like this character. I really like Dhruv Maharaj because I can resonate with this pastime. That's when you actually start developing, becomes even more personal. That stage is called dhyana. And when you further graduate, some of you, if you had children, most of you don't have had children, some of us that have had children, you reach this stage of anusmriti. Anusmriti is the stage where, if you ever raised a toddler, you could be cooking, but your mind is constantly aware. If there is no sound coming for 5 minutes, you know there's some trouble going on. Once I found my son in a whole bucket of flour. The other time he had rolled the whole toilet paper into, and was trying to flush it down. So while I was engaged in something else. But Anusmriti is that we could be engaged in different activities, but at the back of our mind, Krishna is always present. We are completely absorbed in Krishna. Anusmriti. The other day I was traveling somewhere with Mataji. You know, I casually picked up my passport and I just kind of scrambled my boarding pass and then I showed her. Prabhupada would never do this. And for a minute I was like, this is unspeakable. You know, she could have just chastised me. You put your boarding pass neatly. But what did she think of? Because her mind was absorbed in Prabhupada constantly. If you sit with Malaki Prabhu, she would just like pour pastimes of Prabhupada immediately. Because her mind is, no matter what she's doing, in the back of her mind, Prabhupada is always present. And in the back of the mind, when you're raising your child, you're constantly vigilant what your child is doing. That is how we need to be conscious of Krishna. That stage is called Anusmriti. And when we further graduate, we reach the stage of Samadhi. This is a stage where we want to leave our body completely fixed. Nothing else matters. Just you, Krishna. That is the stage of Samadhi. So here we're seeing this 5-year-old boy completely absorbed, fixed in the remembrance of Krishna. So all of his external circumstances did not affect him physically and did not affect him emotionally, mentally, no matter which, psychologically, whichever way he was. He was fixed in remembrance. Now, in this beautiful chapter, and you can always tell me that Govinda Priya, your time is up, because my watch is still showing me. Oh, we have time. What time do we finish? 8:30. Oh. So, the most beautiful thing about this chapter is Prahlad pacifies Lord Narasimha with grace. But here, Lord Narasimhadev has just killed Hiranyakashipu. Can you imagine the anger he had? He ripped apart Hiranyakashipu. This evening we'll talk about the different forms of Lord Narasimha. But he rips apart Hiranyakashipu, garlands himself with his intestines. Even to talk about this to a child looks like, maybe it's PG-rated or something. It's plastic. Isn't it? It's gruesome. His mane covered with blood. And here this child is watching from the corner. in killing his own father. Talk about traumatic experiences. Just imagine, just put ourselves in that place. But Prahlad Maharaj is standing there in the corner. Everyone else is shivering in fear. Lord Brahma doesn't want to approach him. Lord Shiva doesn't want to approach him. Nobody wants to approach him. They say, okay, Lakshmi, you go approach. He's your husband. She's like, no, not at this point of time. Even I don't want to do it. So Lord Brahma sends this 5-year-old boy. You go and pacify. Now this whole chapter is so beautiful because we'll look at how Prahlad Maharaj is praying. I kind of find this, I love this verse because I find here Prahlad Maharaj, along with humility, he has some sort of a swag. He's like, I'm not afraid of you. You're everybody shivering. And he goes then, he's like, I'm not really afraid of you. I'm not afraid of your bloody mane. I'm not afraid of your blood-tipped, sharp nails. I'm not afraid of your sharp teeth. I'm not afraid of your intestine garden. Look at that swag. I mean, it's just amazing. But over here, what is emphasized is Prahlad Maharaj's humility. Because when Lord Brahma says that you go and pacify, the first few verses of this chapter, Prahlad Maharaj is talking about how he is so unqualified. Right? He's so unqualified. He says, I am born in a very lowly family. You just witnessed my father. You had to appear to kill him. That is the lineage I come from. Most sinful lineage. How am I to pacify him? That was Prahlad Maharaj's humility. And with that humility, he further, if you go through this whole chapter, the emphasis for the first few verses on humility are in qualification, in appreciating the Lord, in serving the Lord, in actually even being able to participate in any way. And you look at this beautiful comparison in Srila Prabhupada's prayers. But Srila Prabhupada is sitting in the Jaladuta, trying to come to the West. This is going to be the 60th year we can celebrate. What does he write? That I am absolutely unqualified, sinful. I don't know how to talk to these people. You use me as a puppet. In Prahlad Maharaj's this chapter where he's pacifying Lord Narasimhadev, you see elements of what our prayer should look like to the Lord. How can we develop a personal relationship with Krishna? Personal relationships are developed when we have conversations. Now we're not becoming Sahajiyas and we're thinking, oh, I'm talking to Krishna. No, but we're putting effort. We stand in front of the deities, we take their darshan, and we pray. How do we pray? Prahlad Maharaj is teaching us. Our acharyas teach us. Further ahead of these verses, specifically in verse 7:9.9, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that even though I am unqualified, this is not surprising. Because even Gajendra, he was not even in the human body. You were so pleased by his prayers. What does he say? Because you were pleased by devotion. irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your yoni, irrespective of what, all you're seeing is your devotion. That is what pleases Krishna. Because everything else changeable, right? Could be male, female, animal, bird, doesn't matter. What we carry is devotion. And what we need to focus on is devotion. Everything else is skin disease. Right? Simple. Because it's changeable. But devotion is something that Prahlad Maharaj highlighted. That my lineage may be unqualified. It is. I'm born in a simple lineage. Don't even talk about our lineages. We don't even want to go into that direction. Right? But what we can learn is that you were pleased by Gajendra's devotion. So I am here, standing before you, saying that I want to be your devotee. And I am very unqualified. As we move further into these verses 15 and 16, in verse 15, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, I am not afraid of you. That is not fearsome to me. Because you seem beautiful irrespective. But in verse 16, he says, what I am truly afraid of. What is the real fear? What do we all fear?
Losing someone, losing contact with the God, like
Losing contact with God, yes.
Forgetting Krishna.
Forgetting Krishna. Missing out. FOMO. Real FOMO. In the real sense. Fear of missing out. Not being a part of this beautiful association. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying in the verse 16 that I am not scared of this samsara. What I am really scared, I'm not scared of you. What I'm really scared of is this samsara, the cycle of birth and death. Srila Shukdev Goswami, everybody knows Shukdev Goswami. Srila Shukdev Goswami was in his mother's womb for 12 years. Inconceivable. I couldn't bear a child for 9 months and I was like, take this child out. 12 years. And he refused to come out. Because he was a Sikh Purush. He had the ability to control. Why? He said, because I am afraid that if I come out into this samsara, my mind will become absorbed in things that will take me away from the remembrance of Krishna. I am not going to take birth. So Vyasdev had to go to bring Krishna personally. And Krishna had to promise Shukdev Goswami, no, please you come. You will not be bewildered by Maya. Srila Prabhupada so many times emphasized to his disciples that you are not sufficiently afraid of Maya. That doesn't mean we need to be fearful, but we need to be vigilant. We need to know our checks and balances. And that is also why we need to have friends. Because friends that can tell you, Govinda, Priya, you're kind of derailing a bit. You need to reroute. They act like your GPSs. The minute you start derailing a bit, your friends, your association, they remind you this wasn't the purpose of your life. The reason why you joined ISKCON, or you became a part of this congregation was for a higher cause. So even in the association of devotees, especially when I do hold a lot of management positions. So every single year on board Govinda, I like to pray. That's just my own personal practice. And I write a prayer to Srila Prabhupada that I am rejoining ISKCON every year. I want to rejoin ISKCON with the same enthusiasm I had 30 years ago. Because over the period of time, we become complacent. It becomes a routine. It becomes mechanical. See, he's standing right there. Govinda is standing right there. Teacher Govinda is standing right there. He's going to continue to stand there. Srila Prabhupada is right here. This association is right here. We become complacent. But we need to make sure that in our life, we have these GPSs. Sometimes, and for devotees, we're not going to become disturbed by really, really sinful life. Because we've kind of reached a level of purification where those things are not so attractive. Maybe we won't be attracted to chicken nuggets, but we might become attracted to something else that still is within the range of okay and accepted. Right? So we think we need to be afraid of chicken nuggets or our four legs. But there's a lot more. Sometimes in management, our mind become absorbed with how can this one behave like this? How can that one? Your mind is consumed with so many things because we have differences of opinions. And then we're like, oh, I don't want to be in this association. Right? In all levels, that happens. In senior management positions, even if you stay with devotees, you might have difference of opinions in ashrams and what you can get. Everything looks really happy here. But I'm sure we're all in samsara. So we definitely have differences of opinions. But we don't have to focus on those. What we need to focus on is why we came here in the first place. Let's rejoin every year with the same enthusiasm and keep our goal fixed.
Master,
Yes,
why not every day?
every day. Yes, excellent. Why not every day? I do it as a practice. I think I have some stamina for a year. And after a year, I'm like, what did I sign up for? So I have to do a real vigilant recharge of energy. But why not every day? Yes, every day remind yourself why we joined. What is the purpose that we're here? So Prahlad Maharaj is saying here that I am afraid of samsara. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of samsara. And if you continue further in this chapter, the third segment of prayer. Srila Prabhupada also, I like to draw parallels to our contemporary acharyas. Srila Prabhupada also in his prayer on the Jaladutta, he says, why have you brought me here to this place? Right? When people are intoxicated, he's afraid. Maybe I have some purpose here, otherwise why will I leave Vrindavan and come here? Acharyas, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, all these prayers that we have in Srimad Bhagavatam teach us how we should pray, how we should lead our life. Prayer is a very, very powerful way of connecting with Krishna. It's like having a conversation. If I just speak here and I don't communicate with you, how can I get to know you? And I'm telling you that once we start first initially it might seem mechanical, but you will see how Krishna answers prayers And you will see that your doubts in your prayers will be answered. You will start seeing Krishna's hand in your life. Such a powerful tool. That's why our Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with prayers. With these prayers. One year I did all the prayers as my personal study. I did prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam over a period of a year. This year I'm doing all the Gitas with that. It's easier for me to study theme-based. I feel overwhelmed to have to study one canto. So whatever works for you, find what works for you to be engaged. So same thing here. And beautifully in this verse 7.9.16, there is upper varga. There is a word called as upper varga. Very interesting word. You know, Sanskrit scholars, and Prabhupada refers to this several times in his lectures, but there is a word called as pavarga. Like if you say, categories, like we say consonants, vowels. So in Sanskrit, there is a pavarga. Varga is categories. So all the P words, so it's pa, bha, ba, bha, ma. And the Sanskrit scholars, because they were rooted in devotion, and Srila Prabhupada mentions this several times. He says pa refers to parishram. It's hard labor, extensive labor. Bha refers to fena, foaming at mouth. Hard labor to the extent of foaming at mouth. Prabhupada uses this example so many times. And we're working so hard, foaming at the mouth. Bha, bandhan, bondage. Bha, bhaya, fear. And ma, marana, mrityu. So, pa varga is all of these things: hard labor, foaming at mouth, bondage, fear, and death. And a is negation of all of this. Apavarga. If you look in the verse 7.9.16, apavarga is mentioned. So when you look at that word, you can think pavarga means all of these things, and a is negation of all of these things. How does all of these things become negated? Prahlad Maharaj continues ahead in this particular chapter where he says that I do not desire anything other than pure devotional service to you. Now, Narasimha was very pleased. And when you're pleased, you want to reciprocate. Right? When you're happy, you're like, how do I reciprocate with this? I want to give you something. I want to gift you something. So your Narasimha is saying, ask for something. I want to give you some boon. I have a laundry list of things I want. Right? We all have a laundry list of things. Even if it means, make me more spiritually, make me more shastrically qualified to speak, make me a good singer. Even if they're devotional, we find ways of weaving our desires into devotion and making a laundry list. But what does Prahlad Maharaj say? I am not a merchant. I am not here offering these prayers or fixing my mind in you to trade something with you. I don't want anything. I just want to continue to have this longing of you. So he's not even asking of wanting Lord Narasimha. I just want to have this longing of after. And we all have that at this point in time. We we have this longing. That's the reason we're here. Because we have this longing of wanting to know Krishna, wanting to love Krishna. Right? And everything else, perfecting our lives, overcoming difficulties, will happen. It's a byproduct. We have to be focused, like Arjuna was focused on the eye of the fish. Of course, he was maintaining, he was vigilant about what was going on in his surroundings, but his focus was on the eye of the fish. Our focus is the focus on devotion. I want to have this deep desire to love Krishna. And everything else will be managed. I will find the right process of managing, right? But our focus needs to be crystal clear in our mind and heart. We're not here for anartha nivritti. We're not here for any of that. There are many nice people who can get over trauma by psychological therapy, healing. You can cleanse your body, you can cleanse your mind. We are here because we want to love Krishna.
Master,
Yes.
are we here to love Krishna or we are here to experience the love Krishna has to each of us?
When we start to love Krishna, we will definitely experience the love Krishna has for us. We cannot love Him till the time we experience the love Krishna has for us. Because how can we love? It's a reciprocation, right? How can I love you fully? Your child will love you when he knows how much love he's getting from you. It's a reciprocation. It can never be a one-way street. Even though Krishna loves everyone, but still a special affection for the people that love him so much. Right? He's a person. He's not a robot. He's a person. And he reciprocates with her. The only thing is you cannot cheat him. Right? You cannot like pretend to be nice. You can't, diplomacy doesn't work there. In management we use diplomacy, you agree or you don't agree, you be nice. But Krishna knows exactly what's in our mind and heart. So we want to love Krishna. We want to do what is in our ability to do. Even though that is not in our ability to love Krishna, we have to beg Krishna that we want to love you. We have to beg to our acharyas that we want to love him. And that will help us realize his love for us. Because he loves us deeply. He always did and he always will. Even when we were an ant, he was with us as Paramatma within our heart. Even when we were a worm in the stone, he accompanied us. Even when we are in this body, he's going to accompany us. And even if we become Brahma, he will still accompany us. So he is with us constantly. True love Vishnu. So as we continue, what is Prahlad Maharaj? I want nothing. I want only pure devotional service. And I know we're over time, but I'll end with this last part of Prahlad Maharaj's prayer, which is the fourth component of a prayer. What is the first component? First component of a prayer.
Humility.
Humility.
Humility and glorification of the Lord. What is the second component? Be sufficiently scared of mind. What is the third component? Express our longing. And the fourth component is compassion for others. Because we rise by lifting others. Prahlad Maharaj here, towards the end of this chapter, he said, please bless my father. That same father who traumatized him, who was killing him, who tried everything to kill. What does forgiveness look like? We see it in our scriptures. What does healing really look like? We see it in our scriptures. You know, we have experiences in our life and we call them traumatic experiences and we want to heal from them. Here, Prahlad Mataji is saying, simple, how to eat right to prayer. Please help me just fix my mind in you and forgive and help them also rise. The Lord becomes so pleased by that. When we start seeing Krishna present in the heart of each and every living entity, Krishna becomes so pleased with us. And when he becomes pleased, then there's nothing that can stop us from becoming happy and pleased. Right? So the fourth component of our prayer should be praying for someone else. Whoever you think, whoever you are. Every single day, make an effort to pray for each other. Because we will rise when we. So these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam are not just stories, these are life lessons. We need to see how we can draw these principles and apply them in our day-to-day life. This is how we need to pray. If Prahlad Maharaj pleased Krishna in such a way, you and I can do that too. We can also fix our mind. We may not be able to save ourselves from the fire, but we can definitely strengthen our mind to such an extent that we're not affected by anything. So we'll stop here with that thought that prayer is a very, very significant part of our daily practice, and we should put effort in developing that relationship with Krishna. If you have any comments or questions, sorry for taking into today's fasting day. So we can fix. But if you have any realizations, comments, reflections, yes. Do we share the microphone and the projector here?
I have a question. I've heard many times that Krishna, whenever we go to pray, sometimes I will go to pray with the recipients. Sometimes I have heard it from some lecturers that even if you stand in front of Krishna, he knows what you are going to talk. And then I get confused. Do you want me to say it or do you want me to not say it? When is it reciprocal? When I'm telling you, when I'm talking to you, or when I'm just quietly standing in front of you?
Okay, let me ask you a counter question. Okay. So I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. Suppose you're married. I can So suppose you're married. Okay. Hypothetically, you're married. Well, would you expect your husband or your spouse to express? You know he loves you, but would you expect him to say something off and on? Would you expect him to reciprocate with you in maybe a flower, maybe a gift? But you know he loves you. Is it important to say something? Yes. Does that answer your question? So when we stand in Krishna, he knows our heart. We know his heart. We know he loves us. And he knows we love him. Why not express it? Because it's a relationship. He's personal. He's personal. He's standing. And we tell him. It's a relationship. Every time we stand in front of Prabhupada during Guru Puja, we thank Prabhupada. What is Guru Future? We thank you, Papa, for all the effort that he's taken as a founder of Mataji to establish. You know, even though I was born in a Punjabi family, but my parents became Sri Vaishnavas. So I was raised in a Sri Vaishnava family with Lakshmi Narayan worship. My grandfather, if even somebody cooked onion garlic in the house, if somebody even brought onion garlic in the house, it was never cooked. He would throw pots and pans out of the house. You know, and I became so averse to this fanaticism. It took somebody from Chicago to convince me of something that I was raised with. So we all need, like my Guru Maharaj was born in Chicago. So the point I'm trying to make is that even though there are people that could be raised in Vaishnava families, they may not be convinced about the process. So when we think about, every time I stand before Prabhupada, I thank him for that. That if it wasn't for you coming to the West and my Guru Maharaj coming into Puri, I probably would have, I remember as a teenager being rebellious, saying that I don't want to have anything to do with this practice, this sort of fanaticism. Right? Because I was raised right. But it took somebody, I always like to say, it took somebody from Chicago to come convince me of what I was being taught as a child.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Like there in class Mataji. I had this question, like when you were talking about how at work you have to be diplomatic even if you don't want to be very conflicted and dealing with like extreme personalities. At that time, when you think of it, like it's so difficult to say that the purpose was to never forget Krishna and this is all Maya and you're just, I mean, at that time, like I've heard some lecturers say that think about it as if that some purification is taking place and then like you were saying in your class, you just pray for them compassionately and call it a day.
So that's the highest level. And
It's hard.
Of course it is. I'm clear. And I'm saying it doesn't mean I practice it all the time. So you have to understand that what is important is you know what is right. It's also important to do what is right. We know that I need to get to the 13th floor, right? Have that very crystal clear. Sometimes devotees say, oh, maybe not 13th floor. Maybe we can just get to the 9th floor. No, we need to get to the 13th floor. Have that clear. Am I at the 13th floor? No. Make sure you know where you're at also. Now, suppose you're put into a hypothetical situation. Okay, you're in work and you know Krishna is Paramatma even within their heart. You're going through a traumatic experience. Sometimes you might just burst because you don't have that strength and that ability or that unity and you fall sick. Right? What is Krishna consciousness? Is you're building that immunity day by day. We're reminding ourselves. So you go back. I like to journal. You go back and you reflect. Even if you don't write it down, you reflect. What is it that I could do differently next time? What is it that I can do now? Is it too painful for me to go and apologize? If it is, maybe I don't want to. Maybe I want to stay distant. Figure it out. What feels right? And push yourself a bit. A little. Because you also have to trick your mind. Right? The mind is going to hold resistance. So you just want to stay in that stretch zone. You don't want to be in a zone where you break. But stretch, stretch, stretch gradually. When we build that flexibility, and one fine day, you'll be sitting there and you won't fizz like a bottle of soda. Right? Whenever somebody shakes, you won't fizz like a bottle of soda. You'll be able to stay calm. So learn from that is why it's called sadhana. It's practice. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. That's the biggest problem because we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves. This is when we become frustrated. Know where we want to go, know where we are, and make conscious effort, baby steps, every single day to get where you want to. Don't stop. Don't become, and don't bomb yourself. Another thing that I see the boys do is that they become so depressed that, I can't do this. This is just too hard. So let me just forget about it. No. Don't become depressed either. Because being depressed is also Maya, being over ambitious is also Maya. You want to find that balance and be in the stretch zone. So okay, this time I did this right. The second time, when you have that in your mind, you might wait 20 minutes before you speak. And the next time, you might wait a day. And the next time, you might say, it doesn't matter. I don't care. It's not okay. It's not enough.
Yes, that was it. Thank you.
And if anybody needs to leave, please leave.
Thank you, Rubu. It was a beautiful class. Something that really touched me was prayers. I used to regularly write prayers in my journal, but somehow I lost that practice. But you really inspired me to start that again. And something that I want to do is write prayers for others also. And my question is related to Maya. So we were talking about Maya, and many times Prabhupada also talked that my disciples are not afraid of Maya. That is what I'm worried about. So how do we relate with Maya? Should we be always afraid that okay, am I doing something wrong? Is this Maya, or are we supposed to keep it in back of our mind that okay, I have to be careful. I have to yes. So how?
So, in our mind should only be Krishna. No need to keep on doing that. But at the same time, it's like driving when you're learning to drive a car. Okay? So initially when you're learning to drive a car, you're like, oh, I remember when I was learning to drive, my husband took me on 101, one of the most scenic roads of California. And I was used to driving in India, so it was like left and right hand driving. I was like, oh my God, we'll have a head back with someone or something. But most scenic road. And I was just like fixated on the road, the gear, the thing. I wasn't focusing on the scenery, right? Because I was not experienced enough. So I had to fix. But now when I drive, you don't focus on whether the gear is, whether it's, you're driving. Sometimes you even drive while talking, while looking, oh, look at the sky, it's so beautiful. So many things, because you become an experienced practitioner, right? First aspect, when we're starting out, we need to be sufficiently skilled. We need to be vigilant. We can't become lost in that becomes savage. We can't become lost in the emotions and the scenery of Krishna consciousness. We need to be vigilant. We need to be regular. Yes, morning program. When you come in, you have that enthusiasm also. I'm chanting my rounds for a certain period of time. When I'm doing this, I'm more vigilant, I'm more disciplined. And then as we become more experienced, the purpose is not just, attending every Mangalarti. The purpose is by attending Mangalarti to remember Krishna, right? The goal is remembrance of Krishna. If I can remember Krishna, whether I'm in Mangalarti or not in Mangalarti, doesn't really matter. So the goal is that. So if later on we're a little flex because of health, because of age, because of programs, because of engagement, we can manage. We're still. But if we become too off the B-rail, then we need to have friends that tell us. That's why we need to have our GPS system in place. Okay, you're going, you were too absorbed in the scenery and you took the wrong exit. You need to reroute. Govinda, Priya, you're becoming a little bit too slack. Maybe your service. And the acharyas have very beautifully given us lines of etiquette, Vaishnava etiquette, which helps us develop some boundaries, and these boundaries need to be invisible. Sometimes devotees create these boundaries as such walls. These boundaries are for our protection, not for throwing people away. Vaishnava etiquette is to protect us from the narrow elephant effects of Vaishnava Bhava, and to give us those boundaries of which is our adhikar, what we should follow, what we should not follow. Right? But in the same way, if we create them as walls, we will repel people whom we were supposed to inspire. Right? Now, to give you an example, you're a saffron-clad brahmachari. There are some saffron-clad brahmacharis that probably will build walls around themselves. Right? Have you seen some of them? Yeah. So they will build walls around them, and they're probably for them they're do it as their protection. Oh, insufficiently scared of mine. Right? They could perceive it like that. You should have your boundaries, but they shouldn't become walls for others. You have your boundaries, which protects you, and then you have in every ashram that's there, whether it's brahmacharini ashram, whether it's ashram has their boundaries. Don't make them as walls. At the same time, have your GPS system. Have those one or two people in your life. Sometimes we spend our entire devotional career finding those one or two people. Doesn't have to be a Diksha and Shiksha guru. They can be Diksha and Shiksha guru. But sometimes Diksha gurus within our movement are so busy and have so many disciples that we really need a GPS system. Which off and on, if you're like, they should be so comfortable with you, and you should be so comfortable with them, that they can come and tell you something you won't be offended. It might, even if you're offended, it might take a few minutes to think, oh, maybe he's my well wisher. What he's saying really makes sense. Someone might say, I think this is going on the other side of the road. Just watch your guards, or something like that. So, having that balance is crucial, but not absorbing our mind, because then what's the point? Absorption is weak. But at the same time, this is the art we need to learn as devotees. Absorption, Krishna, still manage to do everything. Live in this world, but don't be of this world. Yes? Does that happen anywhere?
Yes.
So we can stop here. Thank you very much, Shri Prabhupada.
Yeah.